All right.
Good afternoon, Philipp. How are you?
Thank you. Very well. Good afternoon to the world, frankly. We don't know where people are zooming in from, but yes, nice to be here.
Yes, nice to host you in our channel. So maybe we can start with your book first, Trust Economy, because you wrote a book called Trust Economy in 2017.
That's right.
Now it's been 3 years. Now everything has changed. So what has changed or what hasn't changed? So what is trust economy?
Okay, let's start a little bit backtracking with what I do. I like to call myself a trust futurist because I actually believe that trust is a really important value in society. And it's actually something that sits at the root of what makes us successful. So basically, the trust economy is explaining essentially how the economy works from a perspective of trust. So it should probably be just called The Economy, but that title was already taken, so I just had to do something else. The Trust Economy is a book about how trust is really the underpinning of a successful business, a successful career, and frankly also for all of us as a humanity, a successful future. So that really covers what I do. I've been speaking all around the world about this future, the future of work, the future of business, the future of brands, frankly. And what we do see is that even in the last years, especially in the last couple of years, trust has shifted from the classic offline world to the online world. This is what people call the sharing economy. This is what we call digitization. Frankly, it's a major trend. And with that shift has come a change in the way business is done and the way relationships of trust are built. It's faster, it's more contextual, it's more data-driven, and it's most certainly more challenging as well, because we nowadays don't know what's real and what's artificial anymore. So there is a huge opportunity and a wave coming towards us, but it's also important to surf that wave instead of getting drowned by it. So that broadly covers the trust economy and my work, which I've been spending with mostly Fortune 500s across almost a dozen industries and pretty much every continent that people live on, with the exception of Antarctica. So yeah, that's my book, that's my work, and the world has changed a lot now that we have COVID. So obviously, most people have realized much more so in the current times that trust actually matters more than they thought, which gives us a nice basis for discussion about the future, I think.
I see. So you say trust is the world's most important economic power. Can you elaborate on that as well?
Well, there's a couple things here. First of all, it's actually impossible to do business with anybody that you distrust. You need to have some mode of trust. So as in whether we both trust in money or whether we both trust in some form of background, there is always a level of trust that facilitates a transaction. So money and capital are the way that the global business world does this traditionally. But in the absence of those systems, we simply couldn't do business with each other. The other thing is that it's impossible to collaborate with anybody that you distrust, because you would constantly be, threatened to look out for your own self-interests instead of for the greater good. The story of humanity is, though, that the reason we have become successful is because we collaborate. And in fact, if you know this from a brand perspective, if your brand loses trust, it loses value. So really, everything that we know is built on trust. Human relationships, economic relationships, brands, businesses. That's the baseline. And that means trust is the, it's like Warren Buffett says, it's like the air we breathe. Nobody notices it when it's there, but when it's absent, everybody takes note. And unfortunately, we often realize trust issues only when trust has become absent. And that's a problem, because when it has become absent, the value that it used to carry has already been destroyed. So for any business undergoing significant change, understanding the trust gaps, especially with customers and stakeholders, but also with internal folks like employees and other important considerations, understanding the trust gaps is really, really essential. Because when we fill those trust gaps, we can actually become better businesses. Simple as that.
So which brands have become successful in creating this trust issue with their both customers and also within the company?
I think you look at any luxury or any successful brand, any brand that is actually, significantly outperforming its competition. Usually it's doing that because it's actually not competing. brands that outperform the rest are often unique. And they also have unique relationships with their customers. Most of that has to do with the fact that successful brands have adopted this practice of trusting their customers. And customers return the favor by also trusting them in return. So one example would be if you make a mistake as a customer and a brand then basically makes you pay for that mistake, you then try to figure out how you can actually get revenge or how you can fight back. So it creates conflict. Whereas if you make a mistake and a brand says, we're sorry you made this mistake, we understand it was not your fault, we're going to take care of you. That's sort of then what ultimately translates to trust, to value, and traditionally we call this good service, good customer experience. But what it actually often is the willingness and ability and also the courage to trust other people, especially those people that you derive your value from, which is your customers, your employees, and the people you rely on otherwise. So that's kind of how brands that do this successfully, how businesses that do this successfully work. You may recall Amazon's quite impressive valuation. Have you ever had an issue returning a good to Amazon? Have they ever tried to discuss with you about the return? The answer is probably no, because they know that if they trust you to have good intentions, they will keep you as a customer for as long as you and them can think ahead. And this is what creates customer lifetime value and longevity in a business. Now, I don't know about you, but I think in this day and age where we are plagued by crisis, customer lifetime value is probably the most important thing we should focus on right now.
So with the rise of e-commerce during pandemic, now the trust is maybe more important than ever, right?
I think so. I believe that the fact that e-commerce has become a standard for most people, a regular thing, is already a trust miracle, because it means we're buying from someone we don't know, a warehouse we can't see, and a shop front that we can't visit. So when Amazon was pioneering that, maybe almost 20 years ago, actually, that was a trust leap. That was a significant difference. Nowadays, it's common sense. But what is really important in the e-commerce world is that a lot of e-commerce players, they don't do very well on customer relationships. They usually compete on price, and they're very transactional. This means that the moment the customer sees a cheaper price, they go elsewhere. The ones that truly excel are the ones that have non-transactional, meaning relational customer interactions. And this is also why it doesn't so much matter whether you purchase something online or offline, what channel you use. What matters is the kind of relationship and the interaction that you have with the brand, because that determines whether you're going to buy again, and it determines your ability to also become an ambassador of that brand. We know that we share what we most enjoy. So the experience we find most likable, we will share them with others. And trust me on this, there is nothing better for your brand than somebody recommending you. I think that's obvious, right? So that's how trust is built, irrespective of the channel.
I see. You mostly work with technology companies, and what are their take on this trust issue these days?
So I think most of my customer groups are really three types of people. One is the classic Fortune 500, which can be in finance, but it can also be in industries like yours, like retail. It can be in other industries like hospitality. They want to know how they can be better at what they do in the next 5, 10, 20 years. So how can they safeguard their business and future-proof it? The second type of companies is the tech companies. They are in many ways ahead of their game. They're growing fast, they're learning fast, and they therefore have a need to figure out how they can manage their business as they are, how can they scale, but at the same time respect the interaction between trust and privacy and data. So a lot of these companies, especially tech companies, draw heavily on data insights. But what they often forget is that you as a customer need to trust the brand, that your data is in good hands, in order for you as a customer to give the brand good data and to agree and consent to the way that data is being used. So the data is only as valuable as the trust that the customer has in that data being used in their interest. So that's something that I mostly cover with tech companies, including big tech companies who have obviously had issues with data-related aspects for a long time. And the third group is mostly industry associations that are actually looking to create a standard and a yardstick in their industry to sort of change it for the better. So this is anybody trying to take an industry to the next level, to really fulfill its potential, to do the most of what can be done. And as you can see, you know, in different ways, trust matters across all of these dimensions. There's one thing for you to remember, what unites all of them, is that actually we see the most trusted businesses succeed time and time again. So the most valuable brands, the most valuable personal brands, CEOs, leaders, tend to be the ones that are the most trusted. And to demystify that, to put a process around this aspect of trust, that's really what I believe businesses need. Why? Because all of us, we know that trust matters, but then can some of us really design for trust? Can you build a trust strategy? Can you explain how trust works? Can you actually measure trust? And can you optimize your business accordingly? Most people have a need to do that effectively. And this is sort of something that I've spent the last decade on, and I'll probably be spending the next decades on too, given this is a global challenge and opportunity.
So where does innovation stand in this quotation?
Well, what we do know is that companies that have trust, high trust and trust-based cultures, meaning where the manager trusts the employee trusts their colleagues, and everybody trusts that they're working towards one purpose and one goal, those companies tend to be dramatically more innovative. There are statistics on them which vary between, you know, observing a multi-fold increase in innovation, but I try to stay away from that because innovation can be measured in different ways. What you do need to understand is that a company in which people feel safe to experiment and to fail and to try new things, in which they think that their managers trust them and that they can collaborate with people in their department, but also in the department next to them. Those are the companies that tend to be far better at innovating. And they also are far better at actually doing something that matters, because companies that tend to have high trust also tend to have a single-minded focus on a goal, a worthwhile goal, purpose. So one example, I'm currently in a Hyatt hotel. Hyatt during the pandemic actually sent its guests an email saying, you know, we know you currently can't stay with us, but since it's our purpose to care for people so they can be their best, here's a free subscription to a meditation app. I thought that was a brilliant example for a company in which people trust in the singular purpose can actually innovate in times that are a bit more difficult, like these times of crisis. This is one of many examples of how companies that are driven by trust and purpose can actually find new problems to solve. Mm-hmm. And it's especially relevant in crisis because we know one thing, in a crisis there are more problems. And so a company that has a problem-solving mindset driven by, you know, this safety in which people can innovate and trust each other, they are the ones that find better solutions. They are the ones that proactively come up with answers to questions we all have. And they're the ones that through this discover a new value and can actually realize it. So this is what I advocate in a company. When you have distrust in your organization, everybody just sits and all they care about is their job. They just care about not getting fired, you know, staying under the radar, keeping their head down. In a company where trust is the foundation, people actually care about doing the best they can do. And this is an environment in which companies can reach their full potential, which is what we all want, right? And in a time like this, we need it more than ever. Ironically enough, now, in a time that we face at the moment, the more distrust there is, the more distrust will be bred. What do I mean by that is, well, the more distrust exists, the more people distrust each other, the more distrust they will get back. It becomes a sort of vicious cycle. What you want is for people to actually relearn how to trust each other. And as they do that, they realize that that's a way to build a collaborative way of working. It's a way to be dramatically more effective, and it's a way to work together. Example, when you see how Europe and Asia differ in management strategies for this pandemic, you realize that the countries which have done best at beating the virus are the ones that where the citizens had an interest in contributing to the management of the pandemic. Example would be Taiwan. In Taiwan, people voluntarily wore masks. In Taiwan, people voluntarily observed social distancing. Guess what? It's a country that has come out of the pandemic in the best possible way. The same applies to Korea. So we see that countries where citizens trust that they play a part in the solution and where governments trust that citizens can play this part actually fare far better. Another example, which does make me a little bit proud, is the example of Germany, where it was that same level of spirit, as in we all knew that we would be part of the solution and that we would have to do the right thing, that just following a rule because you have to isn't enough, because you need people to care. And when they care, they can solve a problem properly. So this is, I think, a lesson that applies right now as well, because see, the businesses that take care of their employees and customers in this time, they're going to be the ones that will be successful in years to come. Because, you know, people, they have memories like elephants. We remember who treated us well these days, and we remember who treated us badly. So you really want to make sure that you're one of those people that sets a best practice example right now.
Thank you very much, Philipp, and hope to see you maybe in Istanbul in the future. And
I would love to. It's a great city, and as for most of us that have been used to traveling globally, I think we're all hugely excited to be back, at least to some degree of travel. Right now, I content myself with spending time in Europe, which is also a lovely opportunity for me, given that I otherwise only travel to Europe for work, mostly. So now, as a European, I'm also happy to be back in this region, and I hope I can visit Turkey and all the other wonderful places in the world soon again. So thanks for that.
Thank you very much, and hope to talk to you later again. Thank you. Bye-bye.